You see that, folks? That is the number 11, and that is the amount of games above 500 that the Amazons are right now at 21-10 on the season through their first 31 games. How's it going, everybody? Thank you all so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show here in WardyNYM. If you guys are new to the channel, especially what we do here consistently is breaking down, sharing immediate analysis, and breaking down everything that just transpired in the latest Mets game. I know we have a lot of our normal viewers in here. Thank you guys all so much for being here. For people live on a replay, so make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Help us get to 100 likes for the first short-term goal, and help us get us to 16K subs for the next short-term goal here on WardyNYM. We got a lot to get into. This was a hectic game. This was a frustrating game in a lot of ways, and this was also still a solid win in a lot of ways. And we'll be breaking down all the positives and the negatives, the Jekyll and Hyde-ness, if you will, to this 4-2 victory for the New York Mets to start their series, a 3-game set in DC for the second time this year. The first time I was in attendance for Max Scherzer's Mets debut. This time, however, I'm not there, but the Mets were able to secure another victory. So again, how's it going, everybody? Make sure to smash those W's in the chat if you're feeling good after this Mets game. I know that I am, and like I said, we have a lot to get into, folks. I'm very excited for it, and we'll be breaking down Wardy's top 5 here shortly. I see a comment saying no, Pete. Yes, Pete just missed it for me, and I'll explain why shortly. But again, appreciate everyone chiming in, my 200-plus viewers. I really do appreciate it. One thing that I would like to say to everybody, folks, before we go any further, most of you know this by now, and I was debating on doing a quick video on it, but I'd rather just tell you right now, in case you're not aware, there is a significant Jacob deGrom update that has transpired tonight, folks. Came out right before the start of the Mets game, if I'm not mistaken. Jake has started throwing. Yes, that is correct. I did not think that Jake would start throwing until he gets cleared a week from now when he'll have imaging on his shoulder again. But he has started to do lawn toss from 60, from a certain amount of feet away. Either way, it's great to see. I'm so happy that Jake is on the right path to coming back to the Mets. He was placed on the 60-day IL today as the Mets picked up a lefty reliever. That's going to just give them more lefty reliever depth for AAA. And in essence, I was worried at first saying, oh my goodness, Jacob deGrom on the 60-day IL, but it is retroactive because we're not going to see him back right in the beginning of June. It's not going to happen. So he's directly in line to return halfway at some point this summer, hopefully towards the end of June, whatever it may be. But a lot of positives on the Jacob deGrom front to see him looking like he's getting healthier, progressing as expected. That is just a positive to add on to the Mets victory tonight. But guys, we got a lot to get into because like I said, this was a wacky game for the Mets in a lot of ways. And when you look at the numbers, you would think, oh my goodness, the Mets just couldn't hit well today. But no, the Mets were so unlucky today, criminally unlucky, as were the Nationals with some of the balls that they were barreling that led to outs because of the dead-end ball, because of this weather. It's been happening on a night-to-night basis, but no less. We got a lot of breakdown. Boomer, thank you so much for the $2 super sticker. I really appreciate that. Hype in the chat to you, my friend. For viewers here on live, we'll be breaking down things for upwards of an hour. For people on replay, I'll cut things off after I share my analysis and breakdown on this game before I get to questions. That way you don't have to see the entire thing. I do see some donations. Thank you guys so much for them. I'll be addressing them soon. But guys, let's talk about this victory for the New York Mets tonight. First, I want to know in the chat how everyone's feeling. Continue smashing that like and subscribe button. But guys, the Mets won 4-2 tonight, and this was a frustrating one. The matchup was Cookie Carrasco, and again, I thought Cookie would maybe pitch the final game of this series, but I got them all mixed up in my series preview, so I do apologize for that. When it's not official yet, it is hard to figure out exactly who's going to be pitching when. Even when you think you have it right based on the days and the matchups, sometimes you still get it wrong, and that was the case for me. But no less, Cookie Carrasco returning to DC, where he pitched a quality outing of over 5 innings of only 1-run ball, and the Mets lost in their series finale of a 4-game set to start the season earlier this year. He returns to DC, and what does he do for the New York Mets? He absolutely shoves. He does exactly what you would want from Cookie Carrasco, another quality outing from him, and you absolutely love to see it. He has himself 6.2, was 1 out away from getting that final out there to get 7 innings of only 2 earned runs given up, a walk, 0 walks, I should say, 5 strikeouts on 83 pitches. Cookie Carrasco was, in fact, prime Cookie again tonight. Just another day, another quality performance from the veteran right-hander for the Mets, who has been a quality pitcher every single 5th day, except for 1 start this season where he gave up those 8 earned runs and not even 4 innings against the Cardinals. But putting that aside, that was a fluke start, clearly, because Cookie Carrasco, coming off of 8 scoreless inning performance against the Atlanta Braves, does not disappoint again tonight. But what did disappoint in a lot of ways for the Mets tonight, early on especially, it was their offense. And now the reason is, What is the factor? Is it because Patrick Corbin pitched 5 no-hit innings? Not no-hit, scoreless innings, I should say. I'm thinking no-hit because you say Kikuchi had 6 no-hit innings, and then, of course, he gave up a couple hits and a run or two. I didn't see the exact numbers for the Yankees-Blue Jays game right now. But Corbin, the veteran lefty who the Mets scored 2 runs in just 4 innings off of in the opening series this year, he pitched 5 scoreless against the Mets when the Mets had multiple guys on almost every single inning, but they were not able to get those runs in. And it was really frustrating because of the fact when you look at the outs that the Mets had in this game, what was so frustrating about it is the amount of them where if you look at the expected batting average guys, you can find it through Baseball Savant and other numbers, other sites, it would tell you that the Mets were criminally unlucky. Going into throughout Corbin tonight, prior to the relievers coming in, J.D. Davis had an expected batting average of 520 and then 840 on 2 of his outs with multiple guys on. That should have both been hits, at least a single, if not a double to a home run. Then you had Mark Canha in one of his first at-bats, had a 440 expected batting average, and that was and I really do want to credit Mark. He didn't have a good day at the plate today. I mean, he got on base a couple times because of some throwing errors, but Canha, who's batting over 300 entering tonight's game, he's back down to 291 now, said he's completely changing his approach because he feels it's not sustainable. And I agree with him. He's trying to barrel the ball better, feels like he's hitting around the ball and not barreling it enough. So while he didn't necessarily have the best results tonight other than a run scored 0 for 5, Canha, he's so in his head, and I love that aspect about him. He was saying that in spring training. And again, you don't want to overthink things too much. You don't want to have too much information. But for a veteran at 32, 33 years of age, it is awfully impressive to see him having the start of the year he has had and really just trying to get more extra base hits. I appreciate that. I know he does too. And he's working his absolute tail off to be the best player he can possibly be for the Mets. So again, don't get me wrong, Canha didn't have the best day at the plate today as he's trying to adjust things, but he's right. Canha is not known for being a high average guy, and don't get me wrong, it's great to see him do that thus far this season, but as he said himself, it's not something that's necessarily sustainable, so let's try to pivot and start barreling these balls better and get more extra base hits, as he only has 2 on the season entering tonight's game, at least 1 home run and at least 1 double, if not another one. But outside of Canha and JD, what were other hitters tonight for the Mets that had poor luck? Well, Jeff McNeil in his first out, I believe, had a 500 expected batting average. And then you had Francisco Lindor later in the game, what should have been a bloop hit to either at least have the bases loaded, if not bring in a run. Victor Robles comes out of nowhere playing so shallow in the infield. He's a speed demon. He looks like Byron Buxton out there, at least with the speed of defense. Not so much with the hitting, of course. Otherwise, we'd have a different discussion. But Lindor had a 760 expected batting average on his flyout. That should have been an easy bloop there to center. Robles robbed him. So between the dead end ball and between some perfectly aligned defense by the Nationals, that led then to really getting the advantage on the Mets early in this one against Patrick Corbin, who, again, Patrick Corbin has been dominated by Pete Alonso and J.D. Davis in his career. J.D. Davis wasn't able to get a hit off of him, and Pete Alonso was walked multiple times by him without a problem. Alonso was walked 3 times tonight, including, yes, you saw the intentional walk that we saw there in the 9th that led to J.D. getting that sac fly that we'll be talking about in a second. Again, shout out all my viewers. Thank you all so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. Help us. We're trying to get a 300 plus likes by the end of the show. Help us get 100 first, and help us get a 16K subs. If you guys are new to the channel, if you enjoy this consistent Mets content, like I said, I'll be addressing all your comments, donations, all that fun stuff very soon. But I got to break down more about this game because what happened outside of Patrick Corbin, the offense did start to click for the Nationals at least a little bit. Carrasco had a really solid start, but he did give up 7 hits. And who made Mets pay? It was the Mets killer, the man who now has 20 home runs and 59 RBIs. And get ready for this, only 76 career games against the Mets. The former longtime Philadelphia Philly, now Washington National, Maikel Franco gets the run started for the Nationals in the 4th inning with an RBI double. And then the second runner was out on the relay throw, which was positive to see. Nimmo had a beautiful throw to McNeil. McNeil had an absolute dime to McCann to get, I believe that was Hernandez there that was out at home to end the inning. But no less, it was 1-0 Nationals passing the 4th inning. Then as we get to the 5th, Keibert Ruiz, who I expect to see in at least 2 to 3 games of the series, who is a great young hitting phenom of a catcher for the Nationals, did not start tonight at catcher, however. Riley Adams got the start instead, and Riley Adams made the Mets pay. He had an absolute nuke of a home run, pulled that bad boy to left field off of Cookie Carrasco. That was the second and final run that Cookie would give up tonight, but before you know it, the Mets were down by a couple runs, and you had the feeling that the Mets would get the offense. They were just so criminally unlucky early in this one. But then when we get to the 6th inning, this is where everything breaks loose. And this is where we have, yes, the rally rabbit that you see on the thumbnail. Yes, the rat antics a year later after the rat and raccoon does continue, but this time in a positive and not a negative, as just something to make up because you got it in a tussle. Lindor and McNeil are by all means the opposite of what they once were last season. They are buddy-buddy now. You love to see it, but let's talk about what happened in the 6th inning. As most of you saw, Alonso and JD get back-to-back base knocks to start off the inning against a reliever, that being in Carl Edwards Jr. for the Nationals once Corbin was out of the game. And then Escobar gets a walk. Eddie Escobar did not have a hit today. He's really not doing well, down to a 215 average and a 674 OPS that I will be talking about here soon. But then Jeff McNeil comes up to the plate, has yet to get a hit tonight after getting robbed in his last at-bat, and gets himself a beautiful down the first baseline, hits off the infielder there for the Nationals, and gets himself a 2 RBI double. And just like that, the Mets have themselves a tied ball game. And then James McCann with a beautiful opposite field RBI sac fly to give the Mets a 3-2 lead. And James McCann, in my personal opinion, had arguably his best game of his entire season. Not so much with just the offense, but his overall play at the plate. His framing is looking phenomenal, and the ability to drill guys out that I'll be talking about here shortly as we get further in this one. But as you guys see here in the slow-mo, the rat, yes, right after we saw the Mets tie it, thanks to Jeff McNeil, McHit, as I love to call him. That's why in the cameras they turn to the field, and there's a cute little rat on the field. And then right as they're showing it, McCann gets a sac fly. They're showing more of the rat just sitting there. It looks like he was using the bathroom. I don't know what that rat was doing, but I love the rat. He is the rally rat. We're going to ride on that. And no, this isn't antics like last year. This is a positive. It was just something fun, lighthearted. This isn't something where we're using cover up because we had two guys in the tunnel getting a little bit of a tussle like last year. But I will say, Francisco Lindor, a year later, was right. It was a rat in the end. Lindor said it was a rat while McNeil said it was a raccoon. So Lindor, it took a year to finally find the evidence, but he was right, if we're being honest here. But yes, the Mets had a 3-2 lead then as they entered the 7th. And then in the 7th, the Mets did not score any more runs there. But Lindor, speaking of Francisco, had a phenomenal, as you guys have seen here in the highlights, a beautiful out on Maikel Franco. Then talking smack at him after, just some lighthearted stuff there too between two strong players. And Lindor, just a beautiful snag. I mean, that's Gold Glove Lindor. Pat Pennant just riding out, fully laying down there that infield to get him down out at first after Franco, of course, got the offense started for the Nationals. So that's definitely positive. If you can do anything to maybe upset slightly Mets killer, by all means, I'm in favor of it. Nothing personal against Franco, but this man kills the Mets. So the least I could do is be happy about how Lindor was acting there. But then you saw that out. And then after that, McCann throws, doing McCann like he has done best all year long, throwing out the runner at second, that being indeed Strange Gordon, with absolute ease. Gordon, who's known for his speed on the base pass, has over 330 stolen bags in his career for the 34-year-old infielder/outfielder. He gets out with these to end things, and that was great to see there in the 7th. And that's why McCann really impressed me tonight. He wasn't just 1 for 3 with the RBI, the drill out, and also you saw he had a beautiful sac bunt that didn't lead to a run, but just a perfectly placed bunt that he was this close to getting safe on first to advance the runner later in this one. I just thought McCann had as good of a day as you could probably see from him in the New York Mets uniform, which again is saying a little bit, but it was a very solid game for James McCann. But then as we get to the 9th inning for the New York Mets, Canna gets on base thanks to an error, the second time has that many at-bats. His last 2 at-bats got on first thanks to a throwing error. Lindor's single turns double because Lindor is aware of the defense by Soto not looking good, able to go from first to second. Mets have runners on first, second, and third, no outs. Then they get another base runner on because Alonso gets intentionally walked. Bases juiced for the Mets, and they entered that situation 3 for 19 this season this year with bases loaded. But J.D. Davis came up clutch. J.D. got himself a beautiful opposite field sac fly that should have been a home run for basing this on expected batting average. Was over 400, was 460. So JD on the day with all of his outs, with every single ball that JD hit that went out of the infield or just in general, he had an exit velo of at minimum 100 miles per hour. And all 3 of his outs tonight, folks, again, a 520 expected batting average, an 840 expected batting average, literally a guaranteed hit that somehow, some way was swallowed by that Nationals defense. And then a 460 on the sac fly. I mean, JD, in my personal opinion, this, like McCann in a lot of ways, is arguably the best game he's had so far this season. He leads the league in XWOBA, and you're just seeing that he's barreling the ball. He's finally getting on top of those fastballs. And don't get me wrong, the Mets, you still need to do better offensively against a Nationals club where the Mets entering the 9th inning today, at least, were 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position and left 10 on base. They were able to tack on an insurance run, which definitely didn't hurt, as Edwin Diaz did what Edwin Diaz has done all year long with another day, another save for Sugar, as the Mets end up winning this one 4-2. But between J.D. Davis, who I thought just had a tremendous game, was barreling every single pitch he saw. He deserved at least one hit against Corbin, which he has owned his entire career. Didn't get it, but it didn't stop J.D. from still having a very strong day at the plate. Him and McCann, two guys that you haven't seen too much offensive production from an overall strong play, really showed out in this game. In a game that, again, the Starling Martes of the world, Marte had a golden sombrero. Marte, did not have a good day at the plate whatsoever. He was 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. You need to be better. Eduardo Escobar struggling. So the guys that you expect more out of this lineup have not been thriving as of late, but you're at least able to see some of that production from the guys that are hopefully on an upswing in the games going forward, not just for the remainder of the National Series, but beyond that as well. But let's talk about for a second, folks, Cookie Carrasco and his arsenal tonight before I sort of answer your comments, questions, and concerns and cut this off for people on replay, because Cookie Carrasco faces a Nationals team tonight that is known for being a really good team against fastballs. And Cookie, who has changed his arsenal this year to really not be heavy on the fastball, threw his fastball more often than not tonight's game, if not the most out of any games, out of any starts this season, then very much close to so far in 2022 for Cookie. 57% of his arsenal night for Cookie Carrasco was with the four-seam fastball that had a tremendous success. 95 is where he topped out with the heater. Velo-wise, 91 was the minimum. 94 was the average. Changeup, 29% of his arsenal. Cookie's changeup has looked so good all year long. 89 where he topped out. 87 was the minimum, and the average was 82. Then the slider, 12% of Cookie's arsenal tonight. Topped out 89, minimum 86, and average 87. Then the curveball, only 2% because he threw it twice. Topped out at 83, minimum 82, and the average 82. So Cookie Carrasco, in a nutshell, another phenomenal performance. Yes, the Mets left a bunch of runners on base today, and yes, there's rightful criticism where criticism should be had. But when we're basing things on the complete dead end ball, and if you're looking at these numbers, if you're looking at the expected velo, this team will get in the right direction. I assure you guys, has been criminally unlucky. And again, this is a Nationals team that you should take more advantage of than 4-2 and leave you a boatload of guys on base. But I'm not concerned really in the slightest about where this team will be headed based on what all these advanced numbers will tell you. This is not just them not knowing how to hit. This is just bad luck and a piss poor baseball at the end of the day. Same thing can be said with the Nationals. Speaking of the Nationals, Juan Soto went 1 for 4 today, but he has not looked great at the plate as of late. Josh Bell did. Josh Bell, another 2 hits. He was one of the main 3 guys I told you guys to look at this year because he is in this series because he's raking, his batting just under 350. But for the Mets and their relievers, not just Cookie Carrasco, but Drew Smith, after Cookie pitched tonight, had another beautiful pitched inning. Drew Smith has now pitched over 13 scoreless innings so far this year for the Mets right-hander out of the bullpen. One of the best relievers in all baseball right now. How can you go wrong? 1 inning pitch, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Then Joely Rodriguez comes in to try to end the inning there in the 8th for the New York Mets when Drew Smith leaves. And what does he do? He gets himself 1 pitch, 1 out, a pop out, infield out on, yes, the best hitter in baseball, one could argue, and Juan Soto. Then Edwin Diaz, as we talked about in the 9th, with another beautiful save. And going through the lineup real quick, and then I'll start answering your comments, guys. Through the order, Brandon Nimmo 1 for 4 tonight. I did not expect him to have a great day at the plate. He, however, still got on base twice because he's a walk machine. And I didn't expect him to do well because he doesn't have good numbers against Corbin in his career. Neither does a lot of Mets against lefties, other than really Pete Alonso, J.D. Davis, and Eduardo Escobar, and maybe Starling Marte, you could argue too. However, Mark Canha 0 for 5 with the run scored, got on base 2 times, however, because of throwing errors. Then you had Francisco Lindor 2 for 5. I thought Lindor looked really good at the plate today. Like I said, a 760 expected batting average on what should have been an easy bloop single that just unfortunately was read so well by Robles there playing shallow in center in the latter half of this one. Alonso 1 for 2 on the day with a run scored and 3 walks. Missed my Wardy's top 5, but it wasn't because of lack of effort. There were just some guys I felt personally outperformed him. That isn't a slight on Pete in the slightest, though. We always love Pete. Had 2 home runs when I saw him play in the doubleheader the other day. I can't complain, right? And then you have, of course, J.D. Davis, as we discussed, 1 for 3 with the runs scored and the RBI. Starling Marte over 5 golden sombrero. Hopefully he bounces back tomorrow. Eduardo Escobar 0 for 4 with a run scored and a walk. Yeah, Eddie has not been hitting the ball well. He is now over. He didn't have a hit in the doubleheader. He was 0 for 9. Now adding together 2. You're looking at he's 0 for his last 13 at minimum. Maybe it's even more than that. All he knows that Escobar, while he had a very strong start to the year for the Mets, getting on base constantly, the hitting has not been there. He's in quite the slump. I know he's going to come out of it fine, but I am glad that the Mets moved him down the order, rightfully so, and need to keep him there. Maybe give him an off day or two until you can really get him back in a rhythm of things. Just to kind of, not a light of fire under his butt, but, just something to get him going. And again, I do expect it to happen sooner than later, no less. McNeil, 2 for 3. McNeil continued his hitting streak against the Nationals. Now 7 straight games where he has hit against these Nats and has tremendous numbers in the Nationals ballpark throughout his career. So this was really felt inevitable. Even against Corbin, was still able to go 2 for 3 today with the double and the 2 RBIs. They took advantage of the bullpen for the Nats. And then James McCann, 1 for 3 with the RBI and the drill out at second on Gordon. And of course, getting himself the nice sack bunt. Not that a run came in, but just because he was able to move the runner with ease, had himself an RBI because of the sack fly he had, and also was able to get a guy out at home thanks to a beautiful comeback relay from both Nimmo and then hitting the cutoff man McNeil to get Hernandez there at home. But guys, for people on replay, this is where I'm going to be cutting things off. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown of the 4-2 Mets victory to start off this series on the right foot. The Mets are now 21-10 on the year, 11 games above 500, the best record in baseball, one could argue. So let me know your thoughts down below. How do you feel after this victory? What do you expect for the remainder of the series? Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on as always. And for people here in the live stream, which is every single one of you guys that I'm talking to right now, I'm going to start answering all your comments, questions, and concerns. But again, for people on replay, this is where I'll be cutting things off.